If you'd like to receive a printable summary of my recommendations for how to recover from colds and flus more fully, please go to my website, kimsuteacher.org, and subscribe to my newsletter. Be sure to include a note to let me know that you're looking for the cold and flu recovery. Those who subscribe to my newsletter for this will also receive my recommendation for the top 3 Chinese herbalists in New York City who are the most skilled in treating colds, flus, COVID, and strep throat, etc. These are people who I've trusted my health to for years, and I would be happy to connect you with them on your journey to recovery. Welcome back to the intentionally unaffordable dystopian hellscape of New York City, where we are expected to literally sacrifice our health in the name of the almighty dollar. For a lot of people, there's a tug of war that happens when they get sick. We need to rest in order to recover, but we feel like we have to push ourselves to keep working or to be productive or to keep working out. I think part of it is grind culture or whatever it is you call that now. But I have observed that a lot of it comes from beliefs we don't even realize we have. These are called unconscious beliefs. Many of us believe unconsciously that our worth is coupled with or depends on our work, our earnings, or our fitness. And most of us don't deal well with resting and recovering because we believe that we cannot stop. Because if we do, we are lazy pieces of shit who will get fat and lose our financial footing that allows us to live in said hellscape. What I'm going to do in this video is break down some of the most common choices I've seen people make when they get sick with colds, flus, COVID, strep, viruses, or bacteria that affect the upper respiratory tract. I'm also going to talk about some of the consequences that I've seen people suffer and what it takes for them to truly recover once they realize that they can't keep going at the pace that they want to. My hope is that I'll be providing support for you for those of you who may be struggling with this so that you can heal more completely and avoid suffering altogether, or at least suffer less. Ironically, the reason most people do not allow themselves to recover is because they're trying to practice self-preservation, and I'll get more into this as we go. My name is Kim Su. I've been treating respiratory infections for over 15 years as an acupuncturist, and I also run a coaching program where I help people do the inner work needed to unlearn the cultural beliefs that are put on us at the expense of our health and our happiness. If you're interested in clearing out the unconscious drivers that slow down your recovery or that actually do you harm, I hope you will subscribe to my channel, give a thumbs up and leave a comment, and book a consultation to find out how I can help you. You can contact me through my website or through Instagram, links in the description below. I've seen individuals suffer from colds and flus for months, sometimes a year or more. I've seen people keep working through illness or try to keep exercising through illness. I've also seen people make really dangerous public health decisions, like not wearing a mask on a crowded train when you know that you're sick. Or one woman who had COVID was dishonest about it, concealed it from the airline, because the consequence would be that she would lose $1,500 on that return flight home from Ireland. And yeah, I would say no judgment, but I would be lying about that last thing. And speaking of judgment, self-judgment is the single biggest factor in people's decision to keep working rather than to rest. For some, it's the fear of looking bad, but for many, it's the fear that they will not earn enough or somehow let their coworkers down, and in so doing will reveal themselves to be garbage. This is an entirely human reaction that is rooted in a self-preservation effort. You see, in the prehistoric lower and unconscious part of the brain, we generate and feel fear whenever we might be perceived as unworthy to the tribe, or even worse, as a liability. This part of the brain also catastrophizes. What will happen if we stay home and rest today? Will we end up staying home indefinitely until our coworkers lose confidence in us? We get fired and then end up homeless because we couldn't pay for our unreasonably priced rent. $5,500 is the average price for renting an apartment in Manhattan now. Are you nuts? It's the pit, so you can have it. But I digress. This negativity bias is unfortunately automatic, unconscious, and therefore unstoppable. We couldn't turn off that background noise even if we wanted to. So here's what I suggest you do when you are afraid not to go to work or not to work out or not to be productive when what you really need is to rest. The 3 steps I'm most fond of are acknowledging, allowing, and then investigating or curiosity. So start by acknowledging how you feel. It might be something like, I'm really afraid not to go to work. I feel afraid or worried what people might think, or that I might not have enough sick days or hours at work, or that something else may lead me to a place of scarcity. Often just saying out loud how you feel is enough to start processing these fears, but you may need to take it one or two steps further with allowing and curiosity. Allowing is the second tool, and curiosity is the third tool. There's one more tool after that, which is nurturing, but we're not going to go over that in this video. Acceptance sounds like, it's okay that I feel this way. This is normal for me to feel this way, and it's how the brain works, and anyone in my position would feel like I do right now. You may need to dig a little deeper, and this is where curiosity or investigation comes in. This is where you explore in your memory for examples that you learned this behavior from. You might have had others around you model the behavior of coming to work even when sick, which in America is considered normal, so there's a good chance that you've been influenced by seeing that. The studies I've seen say that between 75 and 90% of people who are sick show up at the office or at work. These are pre-pandemic numbers. Post-pandemic, it's not much better. 2/3 of workers who know they have COVID still go to work. And why? You guessed it, because of fear. Fear of scarcity, fear of losing their jobs or losing wages, or worse, in the case of people whose jobs sponsor their visa or supply health insurance for a chronically ill kid or family member. True stories. And capitalism knows that this fear is a driver for the working class, and they take advantage of it, which is why not everyone gets paid sick leave, and why, when they do, it's so goddamn stingy. But that's a different story, or channel, or video. Okay, so a lot of us may learn it from the culture around us, or because it's implied that if we don't show up to our part-time job or our wage job that we'll be fired, or maybe none of those things are true, but we feel afraid that this is true, and that this is what's going to happen. We also learn this belief from those closest to us and from our own experiences. Did you have a parent or a partner or a sibling or a teacher in school who was known for showing up to work no matter what? Or did you once lose a job or a place at a school or a place on a team because you had to stay home from an illness? These types of negative lessons are extremely powerful because they are deeply personal and they hit right in the home. And they have an impact that looks undeniable. By the way, for every negative event that the human brain perceives, it takes 5 positive events to help us to get over that negative event and not act out of the fear that we learned from that event. That's a pretty strong negativity bias. I'm not going to get further into how to fight the system or work the system when you're sick. That's another video. But if you're wrestling with the fear of scarcity on one hand, and feeling that you really want to stay home and rest on the other hand, I hope these steps will help you dig a little bit deeper so that process becomes less stressful for you. Another thing that I see is people's fear of letting their bodies go. This is particularly the case for the body conscious, who don't want to get fat or lose their gains or lose progress in their training. And I get all that, been there. But what I want to point out is that we think that we have to maintain our appearance at a minimum or our fitness at a minimum. Many people tell me that after 2-3 days of bed rest, they feel like a fat, disgusting, flabby, gross, or a pile of gooey, smelly shit. These are actual words people have related to me. Just listen to the judgment in them. Our relationship with our bodies is so adversarial, so sad, and so dysfunctional that when we bump up against having to stop maintaining our good looks and start to turn into that disgusting fat slob, the struggle is a losing battle before it even started. Now, I know firsthand about negative body image. I used to be fat, and I was bullied mercilessly for it, and I still carry what I like to call my too much and not enough vibe about my body. So I get it, not to control how I look to an acceptable minimum usually feels like if I have to give up control, I'm going to cease to be, as in like die. Yeah, I know I'm not really going to die if I quit working out, but part of me feels that way emotionally, like I'm going to die. And this again is the negativity bias and the catastrophizing of the unconscious part of the mind. And the same process that I recommended before can help you now. So that's acknowledging, allowing, and curiosity. But there's a bigger point here that I want to make, and that is that to go from judgment to acceptance of our bodies is usually a lifelong process. It takes considerable work. It feels, therefore, also unfair that when we get sick, our fitness and appearance suddenly stop and get derailed, and that we have to suddenly deal with all that baggage immediately with little preparation, and our choices are between two really uncomfortable positions. But trust me on this, because I speak from experience. Working out when you're sick is one of the most dangerous things that you can do. Even more dangerous than working while you're sick. I mean, they both wear you down, but working out comes with the added detriment that it challenges your body to regulate its temperature, and it makes you sweat in a way that your body can't handle at the time. When we're sick, we often run a fever. Sometimes it's only a mild one that medical doctors, in their lack of wisdom and laziness, don't even qualify as a fever. 99.9, for example. They say it's not a fever until it reaches 100 and whatever. Believe me, it's a fever. But your body is actively, hormonally raising the temperature, monitoring, raising, and lowering your body's temperature. And this is an immense flex. It takes immense hormonal and metabolic control for the body. And it's exhausting. It's the kind of invisible process that drains energy and just leaves you more and more tired. So anything that heats the body up and makes it more difficult for your body to regulate its temperature should really be off limits when you're sick. That includes spicy hot spices as well as non-hot spices like cinnamon, nutmeg, etc. Fried foods for some people, stimulants like coffee, tea, even onions, scallions, garlic, ginger, and definitely cannabis. There's another challenge working out presents to the body in that it makes you sweat. And this is particularly problematic from a Chinese medicine perspective because sometimes sweating is a thing that prevents healing in someone who has a respiratory illness. Friends, trust me, this shit is real. The body does benefit from sweating, but it has to be a mild sweat, preferably all over the body. When we work out, the sweating is neither the fine mist that is considered to be therapeutic, nor is it evenly distributed over the whole body. Those types of sweating are very, very different. Now, the process of acknowledging and accepting these feelings and drives deserves its own video. So I'm going to make a separate video just for that, and I'll put the link down in the description below. It'll be called something like Meditation to Reduce Anxiety While Sick, or Process to Acknowledge and Accept and Allow the Need for Rest, or Working with the Fear of Scarcity When We're Sick, or something like that. Anyway, link below. And no video on recovering from a respiratory illness would be complete without attempting to answer the question, when is it safe for me to get back to work or working out? Well, there's no black and white, but here are my general guidelines. The best answer is when all your symptoms have gone. And for some people, this may take a week, 2 weeks. For some people, like yours truly one time, it could take you 6 months. And this brings up another mental hurdle that we have to deal with when we get sick, which is that most of us really, really, really have an aversion to heeding every little symptom as a sign that we still need rest. Well, it doesn't have to mean that, but it depends on the person and on the illness. If you're younger and healthier, it may be okay for you to have a residual cough or a scratchy throat after your fever has resolved and your energy has returned. But if you're still getting cold easily, still getting hot easily, still sweating easily, this is not a good time to mess with your body temperature or a time to make you sweat. Don't work out. Likewise, if the pathogen is really strong, if it's taking you a long time to recover, if you still feel tired, you don't feel yourself energetically, pay attention to those signs. Wait. You will recover faster and more completely if you rest. If you're older, or if you have challenged digestive or immune system, or if you're pregnant, or you just have a sensitive body, it might be more draining for you to return to working while you still have said tickle in the throat, but no fever or other symptoms. Will work be so demanding that you get a little worse, or maybe a lot worse? You have to decide. The trick to keeping yourself safe is not to find out the hard way, which is why I always recommend that people be more cautious and conservative. I mean, conservatism and fear do go hand in hand, but again, that's another video. And here are some recommendations on what to do for yourself to support your metabolism and your immune system so that you can get better faster and more completely. Number one, sleep as much as you need. Stay in bed as long as you can, like into the double digits. You don't have to be sleeping all that time, but get in the bed and stay there as long as you can. Number two, eat foods that are easy to digest for most people. This means cooked foods, often served warm rather than raw foods. Number three, try not to heat yourself up. Stay away from spicy or hot foods, stimulating foods like garlic or caffeine, and don't exercise. Don't let yourself get cold. Better to be wrapped up in too many scarves than cold and shivering on your way home and not have a choice at that point. Also, do not make yourself sweat. Don't get in the sauna. Again, don't exercise. And finally, work with your feelings. Be patient with yourself, be generous with yourself, and do this work whenever you need. Acknowledge how it is that you're feeling, allow your feelings to be there, to happen, and be curious about where your feelings are coming from. Lastly, I want to leave you with a few stories about people for whom what started as an ordinary cold or flu turned really bad, life-changingly bad, very quickly. The first, and the one that you probably need to hear the most, is me. So there was a time when I had a really like fly martial arts practice, and I did not want to stop practicing. So I started getting sick. I had been an acupuncturist already for 1 or 2 years out of school, so I knew all of this. I knew better. I was getting cold easily, getting hot easily. I was starting to sweat a little bit. I ignored it all. I bundled up and I went outside and I did my martial arts forms. I did, some calisthenics. I made myself sweat, and then I got cold. The next day, so this is like day 3 or 4 of the illness, I woke up basically unable to get out of bed. My temperature was soaring. I mean, it felt like I was on fire. It was friggin' scary. I had pounding, throbbing pain in my throat, pounding, throbbing pain in my head. And I don't think I've ever been in that much discomfort up until then. I sought the help of an herbalist, one of whom I'm happy to recommend to you. It took me 6 months just to feel normal. I lost around 25 to 30 pounds on a frame that, I didn't have that weight to lose. I couldn't spare it. People didn't recognize me afterwards. They would look at me and seeing me for the first time in 6 to 12 months, and they would recoil in shock. And then it took another 6 months, for a total of 12 months, a year, for me to get my strength fully back. And I was young. I think I was around 32 or 33, something like that. Luckily, I recovered from it, and I took getting sick a lot more seriously after that. I'm not saying that I rush home and quarantine myself at the first sign of a throat tickle, but it's kind of something like that in terms of taking time off. Another story I want to relate to you is about a college student who was a son of a friend of mine, and he was very strong, very healthy. He was at a very good, I think an Ivy League school or something, really, really killing it. He got strep or something like that. And he had it for a few days and everything was normal, and all of a sudden he could not regulate his heartbeat. His heartbeat was racing. He had pain in his chest. Sometimes his heartbeat would drop and he would feel like he's passing out. Also, he was losing his vision. He was actually having ocular strokes. He struggled in the hospital, I think, for 3 weeks or something. And when he came out, it took him several months to get back to normal, and he didn't do any of the outdoor, crazy, making yourself sweat training that I did. I don't know if he did anything else, like eating a bunch of spicy foods or a ton of caffeine or not having enough rest or something. He probably didn't rest enough as a college student, but not fair to put that on him or anything, but it was life-changing for him. He thought he was going to die. Another story I just heard about is a woman who was a Chinese medicine practitioner, and she went on an aid mission down to like someplace in South America, and she got sick, and she came back and gave herself herbs, which is something that we're always admonished not to do. Because if you give yourself the right formula, it can help you get better quickly, but if you give yourself the wrong formula, it can be deadly. And this was one incident where a Chinese medicine practitioner died because she misdiagnosed herself. I hear about things like that, and I remember all of the really senior practitioners around me who always said, don't ever give someone herbal medicine, don't ever take herbal medicine for a cold or a flu or COVID unless you're absolutely sure what pattern you're dealing with. You've been through the whole traditional Chinese medicine differentiation over like 6 to 12 patterns, you know which one and which permutation of that pattern it is, according to that person's constitution. It's Chinese medicine, Chinese herbal medicine is extremely individual, extremely individual. It is not something that you can just kind of like flippantly grab something off the shelf in order to calm down cold and flu symptoms. I don't recommend that at all. Again, if you're interested in pursuing Chinese herbal medicine, I do know qualified practitioners in New York City who I trust and who I've trusted my children's health to, and I'm happy to make those recommendations. You just go to my website, compassionatelearning.net, and you go to my website, kimsuteacher.org, and sign up for the newsletter, and I'm happy to send you those 3 recommendations. All right, friends, that's it for now. I hope you found something in this video useful. If you did, please drop a comment down below. Subscribe and recommend this video to a loved one or a friend or someone who you think may benefit from it. If you'd like to enlist my help as your guide on letting go of unhelpful unconscious patterns, or to manage a difficult recovery more skillfully, you can find me through my website, or you can DM me on Instagram. Stay safe, everyone. I love you all. Bye.